Hey, we're live. We're going to have a little after show about the debate, if you can call it that, that G-Man had with
God,
Thaddeus.
that was a travesty. That
And it
wasn't a
was a
debate.
travesty. I mean, just when you think he can't get any worse and do worse, he gets progressively worse and worse. And I got to hand it to Thaddeus, and Thaddeus, you have the link, so you should be able to get in here. I think Thaddeus did well. On that fact, I was actually quite pleasantly surprised that Thaddeus did as well as he did.
Yeah, I don't think he. I mean, he's not that adept at debating folks and stuff online, but he's been in quite a few discussions, so he's learned how to navigate conversations a bit better than most folks. But I guess what he'll well, if G-Man will ever talk to him again, what he'll learn is that you have to then tailor your style and your information to G-Man, because you would think that when you approach someone with information or refutation, that would be like the bulk of the challenge that you'll face, but not with G-Man. You have to really cut down information to like Trump level sound bites that an idiot can understand. Because when Thaddeus went on that little, what G-Man called a tirade, he was going point by point addressing stuff in the scripture that G-Man was using for his argument and offering a bit of context and a bit of refutation within that. And the issue is that G-Man didn't listen to any of that. It flies over his fucking
The
head.
hour has arrived. Hey,
Yeah. Yeah, first, let me say, Thaddeus, I think you did really well. I'm going to give you props. I think you did exceptionally well. A lot better than I even expected.
I was just being as stupid as G-Man as some people.
No, you did very, very well. I didn't fall asleep, so it was entertaining.
I tried to make it entertaining. I tried to have humor.
I think you did a good job at hedging him and corralling him to focus on the actual arguments, which I think his arguments were, by the way, were the most horrific, idiotic, stupid, moronic, dumbest arguments I've ever fucking heard.
But like I was saying earlier, is that it wasn't an issue with Thaddeus bringing information. That was fine. Like, he was on point with that. The issue is, like, you have to really hone in on what he says and how he's putting forth an argument. And when you are saying something, you have to keep in mind that he tunes out at about 7 words in. And if you go back and listen to it, it's about 5 to 7 words. He'll either cut someone off, or that's when he stops paying attention. Anything you say after that point is inadmissible. You might as well not even say anything. So when I have discussion with him, you'll notice that I kind of cut myself off, because it's a reminder that I have that he's no longer listening. So if he doesn't get the point, which he won't, you hone back in on that and ask him to repeat to you, what you said, or address something specific within something you've mentioned.
I know, but every time I tried to address something specific, you know what happened? We were stuck on that one first point for Hills. How long?
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
he never really addressed your topics because he never listened to you. And that's one thing that's infamous about G-Man, is his listening skills are non-existent. He has no active listening skills.
There's none.
No, I mean, he's just basically, he literally could, he will say something, right? You can talk, Thaddeus. He can leave, he leave the room for 15 minutes or whatever, you're done. He'll come back and then he'll engage you as if he heard everything. Seriously, that's how he operates. I do really want to talk a little bit about his actual argument and why his argument's so fucking bad.
Really?
Because
there might have been some water to it.
Well, no,
very little bit of it.
No, because the question is, do atheists exist? Well, if you want to have a valid definition of atheism that actually is useful, then there has to be a distinction between somebody who's a theist, which is somebody who believes in a god, and one that doesn't. And we're talking specifically, literally, about a supernatural being. Because if not, what does G-Man want to call somebody that doesn't believe in a supernatural god? If I say, hey, okay, yeah, minor gods exist, I'm a god, okay, but I don't believe in a supernatural god, you still want to call me a theist? Well, how does that differentiate from a Christian theist? You really does G-Man really want to lump himself with people that think, that I'm a god equal to his own god? I mean, he's literally putting everybody in the same position of his own deity, saying, well, if you think you're a god, then you're a god and you're a theist, therefore, you're in the same par as my god. No. An atheist in this community, you pointed this out exceptionally well, Thaddeus, that when we're talking about atheism, we're talking about the proposition, does God exist? And we're talking about a supernatural being. when we talk about the proposition, does God exist? People have not sat around for thousands of years and pondered the question: do naturalistic gods exist? We know people can call something a god and be naturalistic. That's never been something that people wondered about. But people have wondered if there's a supernatural being. So when they ask the question, does God exist? That's what they're referring to. That's why his argument is fucking retarded.
He just sent me a message and said, I really hope you guys don't think that kid did you guys any favors.
What? The kid? See, what is this personal attacks about people's age and shit? Why can't you address the argument?
Is 21 really a kid? I mean, come on now.
You're young, but I mean, seriously, when you're having a debate with somebody, you need to have a little respect to the person debating. I've debated people younger than me. I never meant to mention their age.
Well, you see, he pulls that on folks that he thinks that'll fly with. Like if he does that with me, I'll just point out that he's not a man. You know, so like we can go in the gutter like that. But I think that, you know, focusing on how just his loose fucking understanding of the English language is an entire fucking chapter in itself. That
hang on just a second. Stevie, my man, how's it going, man? He's one of my outside friends. What's going on, Steve?
Hey, Stevie.
Hey, I'm just trying to figure out how to unmute myself.
There you go.
There you go. How do you think I did?
Confusing real quick.
It almost doesn't matter how you did. That guy failed so hard.
He kind of kicked his own ass, didn't he? And that's what he tends to do. I mean,
he didn't even need to be there.
No offense, Thaddeus. You didn't even need to go show up. He would have lost the debate. I do want to say before I continue much further, because Hannah joined us. Hannah, you did a wonderful job moderating.
She did a terrible job.
No, I feel kind of terrible. I didn't realize that this microphone wasn't working so well, so I actually have to speak a lot louder than I normally do to be heard.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to point out you were low, because you were low, but you picked that up. But I think you reeled them both in. You reeled it G-Man, and you kept it on point. You kept it succinct. So yeah, props.
Well, Hannah, I meant to tell you that I was offering to debate him like on your channel again, just like Thaddeus was.
Right, I was trying to insinuate that, but it looks like he has other things to do tomorrow. So.
Oh, yeah. I mean, not now.
What happened there at the end when G-Man started going off and saying that Thaddeus was lying or something like that?
Thaddeus is Keefe's.
Yeah, Keefe's the elite hunter.
But he's never said that he wasn't. So.
There we go.
Well, regardless of the fact, I didn't know that until the last hangout, and nor was it relevant to the discussion. So for me, it was, it was.
That felt like a personal attack that's just coming out of nowhere.
Did you
really?
You
gotta bring this in to add more drama. That's not to do.
Hold on. Did you at any point in time tell G-Man that you were not Keefe's?
Yes, but there was a specific reason for that.
Okay. Why? Okay.
Because the reason specifically is because I was trying to keep the two things separate. Because I used the channel as an outlet because I originally was going to do social commentary on that channel. When you're talking about social issues, it's very easy for someone to get upset about what you say, then want to search up your real name, then fire you from that job just for saying something that they don't like. And since I'm trying to aim for two careers that are in entertainment, I didn't want to necessarily have that baggage be all attached to me.
So you said that you pretty much were trying not to dox yourself. Is that
pretty much?
Okay, so
I want to try to keep the whole debate thing separate from my identity as a person.
Okay, so Hannah, at some point in time, you can tell G-Man that, and if he gives, former Keefe shit over it, we can bring up the fact that he threw a fucking fit when he thought.
I was trying to explain in the hangout why I did what I did.
Well, the issue is you're not a white woman, so you're not going to explain shit to him. So, I'm sorry. That's the truth. It's the fucking truth. Am I lying? Tell me I'm lying. Tell me I'm lying. So Hannah, you explain it to him. Like that.
Small words too, Hannah.
Very
small. But it's nice. It's nice being able to just be myself, and it's got to the point where it's like I don't even care that much anymore.
Yeah, I mean, and
that was the chill. Just was gone from that statement. There was no chill at all.
Yeah.
Hey AJ, how's it going? How did you think I did, AJ?
You did quite well. Thanks. Probably better than I ever could. I just
you probably get too upset, wouldn't you?
People like that anymore. I have dealt with people like that in school, within my own family. I have enough crap with these kinds of people, and you did very well.
See, if AJ thought you did well, you did well.
Yay!
She wouldn't lie to you.
AJ
That's not
sounds
much.
small.
Sorry, I'm not close to the.
It's adorable, actually.
I know, right?
That's okay. See, as G-Man says, we're trying to pretend to be somebody else, right? So we're all socks of Steve McRae. Everybody in this room is Steve McRae.
Ocean is
even,
me.
even I'm Steve McRae.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie anymore. You all are me.
Right.
It's just extensions. So
See,
Sorry, G-Man. We're all Steve.
Yeah,
Yeah,
see,
that's the
Steve,
truth.
I mean, I am Steve, but I am my own Steve.
see,
I'm
Steve,
Steve,
I'm
you're
not
Steve
that
has all these
Steve. All Steve.
soundboards.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, with fake voices on them.
Yeah,
my video
Like
did-
16.
Well, he can make a case. My video, last one, was a fake voice, right? I mean, true. By
Oh,
the
but
way, I
that
understand
one
the
you
pronunciation.
deliberately used a voice that sounded kind of fake, so as to distract.
I'm working on it so it sounds more natural. It's actually
Well,
coming along.
I was going to say, but you used that one deliberately to sound a little bit fake, so
Yeah.
that people wouldn't catch on that the rest of us are you.
There you
Yeah,
go.
see, I'm being sneaky.
Yeah, we know that.
It took me a long time to get this voice down to sound like Jade. This
Wait,
woman Jade
wait.
that I once knew. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait. You're serious about the sock account thing?
No.
You're my sock account too. What are you complaining about?
Yeah. Are you
Oh,
just trying to
sorry.
argue with yourself to make it seem more legit?
Yes,
Yes, and
actually.
I'm arguing with myself again.
Oh, well,
Because I'm
this
the
is
only
what
person in
happens.
here. The only
This is
person that's
what
real is
happens.
Drag, because I can't do a black voice.
I feel like playing World of Warcraft right now.
Hey, I'm
Oh,
part
come
black
on.
too.
We know that you
Forget.
went. We know that you went and found some black guy, and then you had him the alphabet and common words so that you could develop a soundboard. Don't
Yeah,
give me
you work
that.
on your ebonics a little bit,
Yeah.
Steve.
Nah.
did you-
Speak really horrible
But
French.
I like Popeyes. Does that count?
I don't know. Hey, do you like fried
I
chicken?
do. Churches is better, but
You can't take my Popeyes joke. Well, True's Popeye joke.
Yeah, that was good.
Steve, how
I'm
did you
going
get?
to Popeyes. We're all going to Popeyes.
you're gonna have
Yes.
Popeyes and you get Popeyes.
All right.
Steve, how did you get
Everybody.
Jade's voice?
Lots of practice.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot. That's dedication, man. Shoot, I mean, I know I can be quite the vocal chameleon with my own vocal skills, but to do Jade's voice, man, that takes.
Yeah.
Do
He
you-
paid me to help him.
Do your
Yeah.
Southern guy. Do your
Now,
Southern one.
see, you can either believe that or not believe that because I'm actually Steve.
Ooh, and that is really Inception. Hey, Thaddeus,
I am. Yeah.
Do
This
your,
is the Schrodinger Steve channel.
I don't really have a Southern one. I don't do accents that well.
Hey, do that
do the-
Thaddeus
do the one
guy.
I-
Just pitch and timbers.
Just do the one I love. Just do the one I love. Just make me happy once. I want to be
the
happy.
one that sounds all professional like this.
Wait, because I'm a
You mean
very
this one right here?
yeah. I love.
Which one are you talking about? Because I mean, this one right here doesn't really sound that convincing.
That's
But
not
if
the
you
one.
think it
That's not the
does,
one. That's not the one.
which one?
I don't know. It was like more like a cowboy thing. I'm a very angry man, don't you know? Just ask True.
I'm a very angry man, don't you
I'm a
know?
very angry man. You don't like
Yeah,
me when I'm
I don't think I
angry.
have one like that.
You wouldn't like me
Maybe
when
you're
I'm
just
angry.
mistaken.
You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
Hey, do that Thaddeus guy.
angry too.
Yeah,
I
we're
was-
all
I was-
angry.
I was
We're all
rolling.
Steve.
I was rolling my ass off when Dragnot. I was watching your video, and he's just like, Ronnie's like, "Oh, Steve's just an angry man." And I'm like, "I am? What the fuck am I, an angry man? I've been accused of a lot of shit, but that definitely isn't really one of them."
Man,
Well, actually, matey,
notice
if
you
I lie
being too
about
angry.
who I am. I'm a pirate, I'm not this woman in
the whole time.
Corlitos, California. I'm a pirate. Arrgh.
You know,
Yeah.
Steve, you're angry because you're an atheist. That's why.
I
That's
guess
why.
so. Yes, I'm an angry
Wait,
atheist.
Are you actually an atheist though, or are you a misotheist or an
he's not.
antitheist?
No, I'm not a
No,
mesotheist.
but apparently lactheists probably don't exist to G-Man either. So you're either a misotheist or an antitheist. So which one is it?
I you know what? At this point, I don't know what the hell I am. Here's the thing.
Okay,
You know what's- you know
here's
what's-
the thing with labels, because I was going to actually say if G-Man asked me like, so what do you believe in, right? And if I was forced to respond, I'd probably say, well, I identify as a misotheist. Like I could even kind of argue I'm a dystheist or even a backslider. I feel misotheist is like the closest definition to my stance on things, but I kind of don't like to go by any labels because with labels, people can put you into a box and just assume a bunch of different things about you.
That's fine.
I'm
Okay,
fine with
forget
What
those,
if you
but
like
I think
being
that
put
those,
into a
those
box?
assumptions, oh God, those assumptions are on the part, like, if they're the wrong assumptions, then that's the other person that fucked up. Like I'll say I'm a pagan. I know that when I say I'm a pagan, that comes with all kinds of assumptions that aren't even the same assumptions, depending on the person that you're talking to.
Yeah, there's
But,
different types of
that's their
pagans.
fucking fault, you know?
Yeah, it means you like to make out with the devil.
Yeah, but G-Man, whatever
That's the
he
first time I've
thinks.
had a right assumption about my religion.
Well, forget the labels. I mean, again, what do you want? What does G-Man want to call somebody who doesn't believe in a supernatural God? Does he have a name for
You're an
that?
atheist.
It
No, he
doesn't.
doesn't. No. No, he doesn't. Remember,
Oh, yeah,
atheists
no,
don't exist. If you believe in any kind of God, you're not an atheist. That includes naturalistic, according to him. So, what does he want to differentiate somebody who doesn't believe in a supernatural deity? What does he want to give those people
Steve,
a title?
He doesn't think those people exist.
But he has to call them something. I mean, they have.
Well,
they
let
exist.
me
Not
tell
they
you.
have a label.
Let me Steve. Let me tell you something. After talking to this motherfucker on the phone, he is legitimately fucking delusional. There was a God I'd swear to. He is literally fucking delusional.
All right,
And
well,
I'm sitting listening to this guy, and I'm like, well, you know what? I believe you're just this. I'm like, I'm literally sitting in a cafe across from Hanazubi eating a crepe filled with Nutella. I don't care what you believe, G-Man. I'm telling you right now, what you believe in reality are two different things. So let's go back to fucking reality, so I can finish my crepe. And it's wild. Like, you think this is just like a character that he plays or somebody? No, he is literally fucking delusional.
Steve, can I be an atheist to what an atheist is to G-Man?
You know what? You can be anything you want because you're really me anyway. So it doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
That's true.
Ocean's the one I have a hard time with. I can't. The stuff that he comes up with, I come up with to be him, is very difficult.
Yeah, it's really hard.
Steve,
to
if I
actually do
really-
research.
Steve, if I really was you, and I'm not saying that I'm not, but that beard would probably get annoying.
Yeah, no shit.
What did you
It
say?
get really confusing, really, really quickly.
It's pretty hard to jump
I
in
think
here.
you're right there, Dragon. I think you're all.
I'm trying to say I'm gonna drop out now. It's nice to meet you all.
Thank you, Steve.
Oh, God.
Get the fuck out of here.
Jupiter. I can see
Yep, scared another one away. Happens all the time.
There goes another Steve stock account.
Yeah, runner. Yeah, we have a runner. See what happens.
We have another Steve. He's
Steve.
gone.
No, we don't.
That's Max.
Steve, we can see Jupiter out my window.
No, remember that's a hologram. Sorry.
But it's so pretty.
But can you see Alaska? I mean, can you see Russia?
Oh man, we're
No,
not getting to flat Earth, are we? Oh yeah, we are, aren't we?
But no, we can all see Jupiter out my window. Because
So
we're all
we can
Steve.
all go to your window? Good.
Yeah, we're all
send me
Steve.
Your address. Oh, that's
It's
right,
perfect.
of course.
I
I
have a
can
lot
see
of
the Chicago
multiple
skyline
personalities.
from where we shouldn't be able to see the Chicago skyline.
By the way, a lot of people didn't watch maybe
Apparently.
late night the other night, but I did take Ronnie up on his challenge, right? And I said, look, if you want to come into a hangout and you want to show me evidence that I've lied or have multiple sock accounts, and I downgraded your videos, which I don't do, by the way. I even advocated do not go sit there and downvote people's videos just because who it is. I think that's fucking stupid. I really do. So if you want to provide evidence for any of this shit, that I have multiple sock accounts that you specifically asked for Suzuki Das, right? Because he sat there and said, hey, Suzuki Das, you said I have 16 sock accounts. Can you give me evidence for that? Well, turnabout's fair play, motherfucker. So if he wants to come into a hangout to give me evidence, I will take a look at it. Do you think it's going to happen? Yeah.
So G-Man is your role model in this situation.
Well, no, it wasn't G-Man. It was true empiricism. But
Okay.
no,
Well, then
actually,
he's your
no,
role
no,
model for
you
this
know what?
situation,
Let me rephrase that. G-Man did too. You're right, actually. G-Man actually said, he was the one that hosted the hangouts with Suzuki Das, saying, where's your evidence that true empiricism has multiple accounts? Hey, G-Man, if you ever watch this, where's your evidence? Well, where's Ronnie's evidence that I have multiple accounts? Because he's your buddy, right?
What Ronnie has is he notices that when he puts up a video, like a hangout, I think the one the other night, very rapidly had 35 down thumbs. So either a bunch of people are going, oh, look, Ronnie's doing a hangout. I'll go over there and down thumb it. Or there is someone who has a bunch of sock accounts. But
Yeah,
it
but
doesn't mean it's Steve. It could be anyone.
Yeah, I have
who
no
would
idea.
literally want to go through the signing out and signing in process just to like downvote his video 39 times?
I only know one person who does that, and that person is a Christian.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about too.
Yeah.
But, no, I'm playing WoW most of the time when I'm listening to his shit.
Yeah.
I don't sit there and log at a different accounts, and I've showed I only have one. But Yeah, so I mean, all he has to do is provide evidence. Why is he allowed to make all these accusations and then not back them up? Or the other accusations that he's never been corrected by any of us? Really? Well, I have a video coming out in the next few days showing exactly that he's been corrected. So yeah, I mean, it's
so why exactly?
delusional.
So I'm just curious because I thought he might have had a little bit of a point there. What exactly was your objection to him using gods in a different context? I thought I made a good point.
Because when an atheist says they're atheist, it is a common knowledge that they're referring to a supernatural being. That's what the question is asking. Do you believe in a deity, a supernatural deity, not a naturalistic one? We all could say, hey, my pencil is a god, therefore I'm worshiping my pencil. But that's not what it means to be an atheist by any useful definition of the word. And that's what I find that these people do. They have to play semantic and word games to say, oh, well, this kind of, you find the most, general form of the word that has no usefulness in an actual conversation, and then try to make an argument for that, which is silly. Because if you want to have an argument, argue that there's no people that do not believe in a supernatural God, because I guarantee it, I can find dozens of them pretty damn quickly.
So my thing with the context was valid, is making a good point.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'd like to point out that, he talks about going to the dictionary. Well, I've done this. A man named Samuel Johnson compiled the first real English dictionary in 1755, I think. I looked at, I think 1755. Okay. So that's the first real actual English dictionary. And in the early dictionaries, the Johnson dictionaries and a lot of other dictionaries, they not only give definitions, but they give you a reference to where that word is used that way. They'll give you the author's name and sometimes even the page of where that word is used that way, and sometimes even the little quote from it. So I've looked at English language dictionaries going back. I haven't seen Samuel Johnson's first dictionary, but on Google Books, you can go back to one of Johnson's dictionaries from the 1760s. So I've looked at Johnson's dictionaries through the years, other English, from England dictionaries through the years. I've looked at American dictionaries through the years, and I've looked up the words atheist, atheism, and God, and gods. So G-Man's wrong. Let's put it that way. He's wrong. There are two basic definitions for atheist and atheism, and sometimes you see the two somewhat conflicting ones. One is someone who lacks a belief in a god or gods. The other is someone who disbelieves in a god or god. Those two things. Sometimes, like in Johnson's, I think it's an atheist is one who lacks a belief in a god or gods. And atheism is a disbelief in a god or gods. A lack of belief and disbelief are not the same thing. But those two definitions are the words that are used.
Right.
God implies a supernatural being or a being with a supernatural complement. So a person who, a person, for example, who thinks they're part of the great consciousness of the world, someone who's a pantheist, that would be, you could say that they believe not so much that they are a god, but they are part of God. Atheists don't believe in that pantheistic God either. So G-Man actually, if he wants to argue this dictionary thing, fine, he can come to me because he's wrong. That's all I can say. He's just simply wrong.
I couldn't agree with you more. You're absolutely right. From what I gather, though, there are different types of pantheism. There are atheistic and theistic types of pantheism.
Well, you're talking about like the Gaia hypothesis.
Yeah, the Gaia hypothesis.
And that is atheistic. There's no supernatural complement to that at all.
Right.
But, yeah.
So, I mean, but again, what it really boils down to is he's trying to just make an irrational argument by using word definitions. And whenever you start doing that, you really have a very weak case. Mm-hmm. Because...
I was going to say he also does not understand the New Age movement. I've been familiar with the New Age movement for the last 40 years or so. G-Man has a really narrow idea, and he thinks it's one thing. It's not one thing. When you're referring to the New Age movement, you're talking about this mishmash of various different beliefs. And A lot of them borrow from Eastern philosophy. Some borrow from Native American philosophies. Some New Agers are pantheists. Some New Agers are Wiccans. Some New Agers, but again, not all Wiccans are New Agers. Some New Agers are Wiccans, not all Wiccans are New Agers. Some New Agers believe in the Gaia hypothesis, and they don't believe in a god at all. Some of them are Buddhists and are atheistic. Some of them are Buddhist and not atheistic. So this, basically the New Age movement is, oh yeah, and some of them are, get their inspiration through psychedelic substances. And some of those people believe in God, some of them don't. Some of them, again, believe they are part of the godhood. They're pantheists. Some of them believe in Gaia, and don't believe in a god. So it's basically an alternative. The New Age movement is embracing alternatives to Western philosophy and religious beliefs. That's basically it. And it's this huge group of, everything from, Buddhism to self-realization fellowship to crystals, which
I just remember there's the age of age of, dawn of Aquarius. What is it called? The age of Aquarius.
Right, but that has to do with astrology. You see, people can believe in astrology and not believe in God. People can believe in astrology and believe in God. People can believe in things like crystals and pyramids and believe in a god or gods, or not believe in a god or gods. There are people who have spiritual beliefs that don't involve a god or a god. They believe that, for example, there are certain spiritual entities that inhabit the world with us. We just can't see them. Kind of like ghosts. But, yeah. Yes. Yeah?
What star sign are you?
I'm a Taurus.
Yeah, I thought so. Okay.
I'm an Aquarian. We don't believe in astrology.
First of all,
you're right. You're absolutely right, Jane, of course. I think it's to do with the supernatural. It's to do with the supernatural element.
Right, exactly. And one of the things, by the way, is when people talk about astrology, you need to realize that the astrology in the past does not resemble this new astrology that people have developed in the Western world here. That this whole business of the star signs and you matching your star sign, that is not historical astrology. And although there actually there can be astrology, but not for the reasons that people think. For example, in the past, we have a modern world where we can go down to the supermarket, right? In the past, the time that a person was developing in their mother's womb, year they were born, could influence things like nutrition. If you're born in winter, you're being born into a family that is short of, sort of food, short of nutrition. If you're born in the late summer, you're probably going to be on mama's back and out there harvesting the fields. You're going to be exposed to a different environment before you're born and after you're born. And we know that there are certain environmental fact of growing fetus, like we know all about, some people know about epigenetics and know about the Dutch starvation winter and how that's affected a couple of generations down the line. So there are actually some aspects of astrology, especially the older astrology, not this modern crap, reality to it, but not because of the actual positions of the stars, but because of the seasons and things like nutrition and things. Environment, that's the word.
Yeah. Also, if it were true, like with physics, for instance, you go to a different country and the physics is the same.
Mm-hmm.
You go to a different country, astrology is different.
Mm-hmm.
Just pointing that out.
Yeah, because actually I like to say I'm a rusty tiger. In Chinese astrology, I'm an iron tiger.
Nice. I'm a
tiger.
I'm a snake with a bit of wood.
Oh, well, I have a little bit of wood after the iron tiger thing. I forget how it goes. There are different aspects, It's
snake just like with a bit of wood.
I'm talking about Friday night, of course.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, Ocean. Did you say the same joke?
That was good. That was good.
It was exactly the same joke. It was just like, so what do you mean by that there, buddy?
It's because I gave it to your mum last week.
Whoa.
Would I?
Oh.
Whoa.
Well, as long as you didn't give it to my mom, because she's been dead for a long time, and that would be gross.
There's a joke in there somewhere.
All jokes are Ocean Mum's jokes, as far as I'm concerned. I'll even talking to somebody else, I'll still reference Ocean's mum.
Oh, hey, Brandon, what's up? Can you talk?
Yeah, I can hear you.
How was that debate, man? How'd you think of that? It's a friend I know in real life, by the way, people.
Is that Thaddeus? Wow, man. How you doing? Haven't seen you for a long time.
Yeah, man. Hang on, I just want to talk to Brandon for a bit. How'd you think I did in my debate, man?
I'm so glad you're not using that voice modulator anymore.
It's not a voice modulator. It's my own voice. I can do that naturally.
You're kidding me.
Yes. No, I'm not kidding you. That's my natural voice. I can change all kinds of voices. It's kind of a talent of mine. Yeah.
Good one.
But yeah, Brandon, how'd you think?
The thing is with me, debates are you either agree or disagree. I mean, this is an obvious thing, I suppose.
I don't think so. I think that if you agree, there isn't much of a debate.
I mean, as like the viewer, in a way.
Oh, okay. I just say I've never seen a debate. We agree. Now let us debate.
Yes, I agree. We agree.
Yeah, we're done here.
William Lane Craig is about to debate William Lane Craig. Does God exist? Yeah. Oh. All right.
How do you know that? Because God.
Oh.
Well, morality's cool. Yeah, I agree with you. Oh. Okay.
Yeah. So that was probably your first time ever encountering G-Man, Brandon. What do you think of him?
What do I think of him?
Yeah.
Good first impression so far.
Interesting, huh? Pretty aggressive.
Intimidating, of course.
Yes.
And
Yes.
definitely
I've never heard
very
someone describe G-Man as intimidating.
Well, he found him intimidating.
Are you a Christian, Brandon, or are you not?
I'm not.
Okay.
I used to be, but
Then you met the like.
I don't really find G-Man as intimidating as I find him loud.
loud as in like voice.
As in volume?
As in volume, yeah. He's louder than me.
Ocean. Ocean.
Oh yeah, he does say my name like that, doesn't he? Loudly, by the way.
It always reminds me of somebody saying, "Oh shit, oh shit."
Yeah.
That's how I got my nickname, actually.
Well, it's the same one with the Alex Bottom, right?
So what? No.
Alex Bottom.
Yeah, he likes to put emphases on things, doesn't he?
Well, just anyway to try and get under someone's skin, you know, because he realizes he doesn't have arguments. So, you know.
I don't think he knows what an argument is, really. And I don't think he really knows what a debate is.
Well, I mean, that was supposed to be informal. I didn't want it to be like a formal one, because that's just going to bore people. I wanted it to be more of like a discussion back and forth, you know? Yeah.
Intense.
Yeah. I like it when it gets intense like that. I mean, I'd kind of like it if Hannah kind of moderated a little bit less in some ways. The fight's what makes it entertaining. Yeah, I've told AJ this before. I like the drama around here at times.
It just kind of gets annoying sometimes when you've heard the arguments over and over and over again. I think you did a really good job, by the way. I just wanted to tell you that.
Oh, thanks.
And you tried to get something out of G-Man, which is difficult. I mean, other than his usual talking points. No. So. It's also difficult when he talks over people. But, you know, I think in this particular case, except for at the very end there where he wouldn't let you finish, even though you let him finish,
yeah,
there wasn't too much of that. That worked really well, I thought.
It was kind of annoying, though. He basically, it's like interesting. I was trying to just focus specifically on the conversation, but he's bringing in past drama, something that I myself said to myself I wouldn't do, because even though I could, have brought in a bunch of drama from what he did. You know, like with even the bullhorn thing. I could have done that, but I didn't.
Right, and
But
he
was
also
only
I'm
bringing
sorry, I
past
should have
drama,
probably
with me,
done a better job at regulating that. I apologize.
which is stupid because it just feels like, oh, you're trying to do the cheap route of making my argument invalid.
But the other thing too, though, is if you'd have moderated more, Hannah, we wouldn't have seen G-Man totally blow it by bringing in other things, which he does. He'll bring in everything but the kitchen sink, and maybe
Well,
even
still,
that.
I was trying to explain in the side
kitchen.
chat.
Yeah.
I was trying to explain in the side chat. Listen, if this has been a fair debate so far. It's one person's evidence against another person's, well, argument, I should say, against
Yeah.
another. Let's not bring that in. You know, there's no need to go that far. Plus, I didn't know what the fuck was going on because I didn't actually know that you were Keefies. I just assumed you sounded similar.
Well, that means I'm a very good vocal chameleon.
But, you know,
That or you grew up and your voice changed.
No. I can actually change it. Like
Your
on
mom's a
demand.
vocal chameleon.
see, G-Man does this, right? I mean, he degrades any conversation, which is why most people, and I think Thaddeus, you did a wonderful job pointing this out, most people don't want to talk to him anymore. And that's one of the reasons, is because he cannot carry on an actual conversation. He does not.
Someone had to take him on if you guys aren't willing to.
Well, no, it's not that people aren't willing to. We have before. We understand how he is now. There's no reason to. He's
It's
not
just
allowed
the
here
same
because of the
comment.
bull. Yeah,
It's
I
not
mean,
even
it's
like-
dealing with a child.
Thaddeus, I wouldn't see him as somebody that somebody needs to take on. I see him as somebody that really needs to be ignored because he's been played out. He's not doing anything new.
I mean, Brandon thought he was quite intimidating. Maybe he does need to be taken on.
But he doesn't.
I've never fucking seen him before. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, sure. Yeah, Brandon, if you want to see more intimidation, you can just go to Jeepman's channel and have him scream at you all day.
I am actually on his channel right now.
Excellent.
I'm trying to see
Have him
like
just
what
scream at you.
video I should watch, which all of these seem like religious videos, and I don't give a shit about religion.
Find the video. that chocolate
He's
atheist.
had a few debates. If you want to just strictly watch some debates, he's had a few on my channel, and I think he's also had a few on Nadia's
Rhetoric.
channel. If that's still
There was
up.
one that he did with Joe Sonseed that was really good.
Yeah,
Oh,
me and him, as you might have already now know, have actually had our falling out in the past. So if you can just search up stuff about G-Man, there'll be videos by other YouTubers that are pointing out stuff that's happened.
Yeah, I got a really good video on my channel of him not understanding basic concepts and running idiotic arguments. Not understanding.
Which one?
We don't have to watch like a full hangout.
That was the one where he
I'll
doesn't
just need
understand that a
like
dog
all your
doesn't
YouTube
live
channel
millions of years.
names.
Sorry, what?
I'll just need all your guys' like YouTube channel names.
Well, all these YouTube channels are my channel.
Yeah, all of them. All socks of his.
Exactly.
Steve, how about you fuck off? And Brandon, my YouTube channel is Ocean Keltoy.
Yeah.
Are you in the?
I told you, Ocean's the one I can't do right.
I've got to say for me, the best G-Man debate was against what was her name? Candy.
G-Man,
Yeah.
Candy.
G-Man versus Candy.
Oh, you mean
Wow.
that? Yeah, the woman. Yeah, I
that
know.
black chick.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
Candy with
Brandon.
the C or with a K.
Brandon, are you in the Hangout on the PC or are you on a mobile device?
I'm on my phone.
Oh,
Never
well,
mind.
that sucks then, doesn't it? All right.
Oh yeah, totally. Actually, it's not really that bad. I'm used to using my phone all the time.
You know what? I'll just put it in the external chat. So you're in the Hangouts app, I assume.
Yeah, Hangouts app.
All right, cool. I just put it in the conversation that is this Hangout.
I
so you
just
can
saw it,
pick
yep.
that. There you go.
Yep,
That's
thanks.
that's my channel. Hannah Zubby's. I'll put hers in there as well.
Ocean Keltoy.
Yeah, it's quite a mouthful, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm fucking Latin and shit.
Mine is
Okay. See, I
Zebby.
tried doing like Spanish in high school, and everyone laughed at me whenever I tried to pronounce like a word.
Yo tengo los gatos en mis pantalones, eh?
You have a cat in your pants?
Translator?
What the fuck?
Yo tengo dos gatos en mi
Yo me
pantalones.
gusta los gatos blancos en mis pantalones.
You like 2 white cats in your pants?
No, just one.
Oh my
What is
god,
it
I
called?
actually have to charge up my phone. Holy crap, it's at 5%.
I don't have a problem
Run.
with two cats though.
Dos gatos.
Hmm.
Tomorrow, by the way, don't forget, people, that is an actual debate
Hey, you're saying mine wasn't an actual debate? It was
On your end,
informal.
I think you tried.
Wait,
Was it? Yeah,
there's
was it?
an
You know, but I mean,
actual debate. Not saying that today wasn't.
how about a more
actual
formal?
debate.
There's more formalized, structured debate with General Han Solo and Floyd, which should be very informative. And G-Man should take lessons because I've looked over a little bit of their synopsis.
That's two people that know their shit going at it.
Yeah, so
that's gonna be really
G-Man
good.
can learn what it's actually like to actually give an actual topical debate. You know.
So what are they debating?
They are debating whether the Bible indicates global or local. And Floyd is coming from the position as an atheist,
Specifically, whether or not your mother is a whore.
that the Bible is presenting
It's a great topic, really.
my mom is, but I mean, she.
No debate
she
there.
yeah,
Wait, I just heard that somebody's mom was
well
a
the fuck
whore.
aware.
What the fuck?
Yeah,
What?
You heard nothing.
we're all joking
was that?
around.
Okay,
So,
not
what's the
joking.
topic of the
I
debate?
heard nothing. This is giving me some weird suspicions.
Your mom's giving me some weird suspicions, if you know what I mean.
Oh,
His pants. Oh, bro. It's late. I'm tired.
Anyways, like I
It's
said,
only
the
10.
topic is going to be whether the
well,
Bible
you
indicates
got
the
to
global.
remember that these guys, some of them are on different time zones, so that's
I'm in
why.
Eastern Standard Time. It's 1 o'clock in the
Yeah,
morning.
Wait, it's 1 o'clock at your time? Okay.
yeah.
1 a.m. It's specifically it's 12:58. So
Specific
Fuck you,
standard
it's 1
time
a.m.
here, though.
So, what do you guys think, though? The Bible? Do you think the Bible indicates a younger? I mean, excuse me, a flat. God damn it, a global flood or local flood? I'm getting
Sorry,
echo. I can't
I
stand
think
my
it's probably a
hand.
flat flood.
So whoever the echo is, got to mute, man.
I think that's
What was the
AJ.
question about the Bible?
That's AJ. Sorry, AJ, muting you. Oh, much better. Oh my God. I think the Bible actually, there are people in the Bible that actually advocate a flat Earth and a global flood. However, I don't get the impression that it actually states definitively that it was a global flood or a flat Earth. But there might have been some people in the Bible that thought it was either or. So.
What? Isn't there something where it's covered even?
Well, I think Paul or Peter might have thought the Earth was flat. I can. Yeah.
I mean, it's
Something
not that
about
they really
covering every mount. Go ahead, Hannah.
Oh, sorry. It's not that they really knew better, though. I mean, you have to understand the type of people who are writing this in the first place. They're basically very literary scholars, right? So they're able to. They're one of the few that in a time that can write and read or they can do basic diction, right? So they can orally represent their stories correctly. But you wouldn't expect them to be like mad scientists up with modern times, particularly in a non-information age like today. We don't expect information like the Earth is actually around to get out quite as quickly as
Sure,
today,
but the argument really is, because it doesn't mention it covering every mountains. The argument really is going to be what do they mean by the world? What do they mean by everything? Do they literally mean that the world, as far as they know, as the Mesopotamian region they existed in, was that their entire world? Do they think?
I would argue yes.
Yeah,
I
I think so too, and I think that would probably be the way I'm going to go. So I think I would probably go with General more than Floyd over this, but I will be happy to listen to their argumentation and see which one has a better argument. That's what a good debate is about. That is something that is debatable too.
Are you talking about Old Testament or New Testament?
They can use either.
Well, that's my point. I don't think you can. There's a big
Mom's an Old Testament.
No, they can use either in the debate. They're not limited.
The reason there's a big difference
they can
between
use
the two.
either, but if they're asking specifically about the global flood, right? The supposed global flood, that they're talking about the Old Testament, no?
Mhm.
I would think more so. Yeah.
There's a big difference. There's a big difference between the two. So
Yeah,
Well,
that's I'm
there's no
using
difference.
the context in which the writers of the
if you
Old
think there's
Testament.
either book to be used, then
Well,
I'm not
Simon,
sure. Correct.
the debate is going to be the Bible itself. It does not differentiate between the old and the new. It's just what does the Bible
Okay, well that's
indicate?
good. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good then. So if that's the case, then certainly the knowledge was around a sphere, right?
Well,
Well,
yeah, there's a lot of
that's
people
the
that knew there
thing.
was a sphere. What is the Bible advocating, though?
Right. So
Right.
yeah, but the people you were talking about that wrote the Bible are not just Mr. Shithead off the fucking street, right?
Right.
Paul, okay, who studied in Greek cities. Right?
But what does the
Ephesus.
Bible say? Does it indicate an older?
That's
God
the
damn
point.
it.
So although he
Or
studied,
local.
yeah. So though I think it's claiming that it's global, right? Otherwise, later on, people would not have been claiming this themselves.
That's an interesting thing, but we'll have to see what it's like in the actual debate when the experts go at it, right?
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting.
Right.
Like I said, they both got a case. This is not going to be some kind of blowout. I don't think it's going to be very one-sided.
Well, I think you can say that the Old Testament, right, believed rightly that the Earth was flat because it had evidence as such.
I don't think.
But
again, only some people. I don't think the Bible actually.
Certainly, by the time the New Testament comes along, okay, that knowledge is disseminated.
I don't.
And nowadays, we actually have modern flat earthers, flat Earth YouTube channels that get lots of views. People that believe in flat Earth.
General would know more than I would. I haven't studied that
Stupid
area,
people,
but
right? Are we? We're talking about Paul.
Okay, you guys are talking over each other, and I can't hear anything.
What I was suggesting was New Testament writers had access to Old Testament literature. So even if they did have novel information, it's not necessarily true that they would import that into the Bible, right? Which would be later considered the Bible because they don't want to contradict older work.
Quite possible.
I mean, most of it is, most of it is mostly meant for illustration, right? To paint a certain picture of God's world. So it doesn't. In most cases, it's not meant to be a literal interpretation.
Yeah, I agree.
Like when they literally tell you how to cure. When they literally tell you how to cure leprosy, that's a little bit different. But the creation story
what they believe, though.
And other ones. I'm sorry.
Well, who believes? Well, you're being very general, though. I think Hannah is right. I don't think the people that actually did the scribal work, or the people that actually were writing it, I don't think they believe, for instance, the Earth was flat or the Earth was young. But they may have, left some things in there for people that did believe that at one time, because they didn't want to have contradictions, right? But yeah, sure, there might have been people in Jesus' day that believed that the Earth was young. There might have been people that believed that there was a global flood rather than a local. But I think the argument is going to be, what does the actual Bible want to impart? What information is it trying to tell people? Is it global or local?
Just to clarify, they're arguing about what the Bible says about the flood. They're not starting at the position of accepting the flood and then
flood is not accepting
whether the flood in reality was local or global. They're just debating of what the Bible actually says.
Correct. Now, General does. General believes that there was a local flood, and I think actually Floyd might believe there was an actual local flood. I think he does. I don't think either one of them accepts a global flood, but Floyd argues that the Bible indicates that there was a global flood, while General says that the Bible does not indicate a global flood.
Yeah, and let's also not forget that much of the Bible, much of the Old Testament, is metaphorical, and that's obvious from the language being used. Also, there is evidence that the at least parts of the Old Testament were carried in verbal tradition for a long time. Before they were ever written down. And when that happens, I did a brief study on that a few years ago. And when that happens in oral tradition, that's what I meant, oral tradition, on how things are carried in oral tradition. And for example, there have been a number of studies on the Iliad, because the Iliad was an oral tradition before it was ever written down. And there are oral traditions in Africa where people tell stories that go back generations. And here in native and there's I can't remember exactly where it is, but there's an oral tradition in somewhere in the Balkans. And there's people have studied these things and looked at how people could remember these oral traditions and how there were certain words and phrases. The only one I remember is from the Iliad, and I have a spider in front of my face. Go away, spider. Go back home.
Kill it with fire.
No, they don't bother me. They just
C4.
You
sorry, it's impulsive.
Sorry, yeah. Anyway, but so for example, in the Iliad, the one of the key phrases is "mighty Thewed Hercules." So they have these certain repeated phrases and some key phrases that allow them to go from one thing to another. So it's like they memorize it in certain little blocks, and then there's a key phrase that allows them to go into that block, and then a key phrase that allows them to go into that block. But evidence that the Old Testament, at least in part, was also an oral tradition for a long time. And to maintain an oral tradition, you really have to change history a little bit. You have to arrange things in such a way that you can memorize them. And I'm a little vague on this because it's been about 5-6 years since I studied this. But anyway, that's what I'm saying. So to look at it as being literal, you have to deny the obvious metaphorical parts. You have to deny the evidence that there is that there was an oral tradition that was carried on for a long time ago.
I wonder if...
and the evidence that yes, they did borrow from cultures around them, probably because those were familiar concepts to them. Just like we use fables and parables.
Who do you think is going to have a stronger case tomorrow, then, General or?
Sorry, I've just got to find out what you mean by borrow there.
Oh well, the early Israelis, the early Jews, were they were Canaanites, which is what some people don't like to accept. They were actually Canaanites, but some Christians will try to say they weren't Canaanites. They were a separate people. Yeah, they were a separate people within Canaan. They were still Canaanites. They were just separate people. So they had the same traditions as the Canaanites. And the Canaanites themselves, some of their traditions came from, like the Sumerians. But we have this history where you can trace all these concepts, and some of those are in the Old Testament. And I don't know why some people get so upset and try to say everything is unique when it clearly isn't. The 10 Commandments, that's nice. Let's go to the Code of Hammurabi, and there's another one I can't think of right now. These are concepts that people already understood. Just because they've been codified or written down in some way in the Old Testament doesn't make them unique. And people who argue that are missing the point. They're actually trying to set off the Jews of that time from all the other peoples around them. You can't do that. Even some of the laws about, for example, it's been suggested that the law about not seeding a kid in its mother's milk actually refers to a tradition, a food tradition, a type of dish that was common in the Canaanites, and that the Jews of that time were trying to isolate themselves from the Canaanites and saying, don't take on their trappings, don't do their stuff. So it would be like if someone were trying to do that today. If you had a religious group that said, we're going to isolate ourselves from American culture, so you got to stop eating pizza and burgers.
So who do you think's going to do better tomorrow? Or
I don't know.
I should say who has a better position starting off from. That's a better question to ask.
I don't know. It'll just be interesting for me to see it. Both of them. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Now again, it starts at 6 o'clock Eastern.
I think General might do better because I've actually heard this argument for there being a local flood from another person on the website, godinscience.org, and I thought he made a good point.
Well, I think there's obviously evidence for a local flood. I think that's not the argument. I mean, yes, he's going to provide. I'm sure he's going to provide evidence of a local flood. I wouldn't question there was local flooding, but I think that the flood does have a more difficult position. It does start tomorrow at 6 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock Pacific. I'll get with them a little bit early.
Oh, cool. So I won't even be able to see it because I'll be working.
It's recorded.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. If it's not live or whatever, I'm less likely to watch a whole hangout. That just seems.
Yeah, I'm just the opposite. I generally watch them after the fact.
Yeah. If I'm not participating in them,
I don't want to listen to Ronnie rant.
Really sit there and watch a whole hangout.
I still can't believe he thinks I'm an angry person. I'm like, what the fuck?
Well, Steve, of course you're an angry person. You keep talking to yourself.
Yeah, well, no, that's a delusionally psychotic, it's multiple personality, but that's
and in numerous voices.
I don't get it. Like I said, most of the time I'm actually doing something else. As we're doing these hangouts, I'm actually just doing battlegrounds. But what is there to be angry about Ronnie with? He is my lulz cow. I find him to be highly entertaining, and I'm using him now as a way to actually do educational things now. Mm-hmm. I like the way my last video was. I'm making another one. It's taking some time because it's painstaking, but I'm actually doing another one which is going to be more educational. And I want these things to turn into a thing as okay, here's Ronnie's claim, here's why it's wrong, and then compare them. And then explain to people what actually is going on, because I know a lot of people don't know about this shit, right? So I want to see if I, as a layperson, can explain to them decently enough where they'll go, shit, I actually understand what the hell they're talking about.
Oh, that's something I wanted to talk to you about. I tried my best to break down the whole thing so that people can know where I was coming from with the whole argument I have with G-Man as a layman's person. Do you think I did a good job at that? I don't want to use a whole bunch of technical language.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
I myself don't make a whole bunch using technical language either.
I just wish you would have talked more about mesotheism, because, again, he doesn't understand
that's a hard
that
one.
to be a mesotheist, you have to be a theist.
Right.
But the thing is, he already agrees that atheists are theists. That's the thing.
But
that's a good point, Thaddeus. That's a really good point. Because he believes that atheists are theists, then atheists can be mesotheists.
And here's the worst part, though. Not only that, but atheism is defined, and he wants to talk about definitions. Atheism is defined as the rejection or negation of theism, right? Not the exact logical negation, but it is defined as.
Though.
What's that?
That's not its etymology.
Well, that's what it means now, though. That's what it means. It means literally the negation of theism.
No, it doesn't.
Yes,
not to
it
everyone.
does. Well, that's what it means by the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy.
Well,
so
yeah, but I'm talking historically.
Well, no, I think historically it's always been the
no,
negation
I've
of
spent quite a bit of time looking into that. It's not a rejection of theism. The A does not mean okay.
A does not mean without, but originally was for Christians that denied the pantheism of the gods of the Greeks. Okay, so it's without gods, without the Greek gods.
It was they disbelieved in atheism, is disbelief in a god or gods. The modern usage is that it's a spiritual. Well, it even was back then, but so I could say I'm an atheist towards. But nowadays we would qualify it. We would say I'm an atheist towards the Roman pantheon or the Greek pantheon or the Egyptian pantheon. But that A in front of theism is not always a negation.
Right. I never said it. That's not my argument. I've never said it.
So it doesn't necessarily mean.
By modern definition, if you go to Stanford's Encyclopedia of Philosophy, it is defined literally as the negation of theism. That is what the definition is given. Okay, and I'm using that one because I like that.
Well, if you like that one, that's fine. And then you can just tell people, okay, when I use the term atheism, this is what I mean. I don't use it that way because I look at it in a historical context as the either the disbelief in a god or gods.
That's what it says too. The disbelief
in a god.
It says the rejection or disbelief in God. If I remember correctly, I read you the exact same thing.
I think I did a good job with the whole.
Hang on. Let's sell it because this is kind of important.
What's important?
The thing being is that if you defined it as the negation or rejection of theism, then obviously it's a violation of the law of non-contradiction to say that atheism and theism are the same thing. That he's saying that you cannot be atheist, therefore they're all theist. So what is the negation of theism in G-Man's argument then?
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
That's what I want to get to. So
G-Man's argument.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, G-Man,
that makes sense. I see what
if G-Man argues that all atheists are theists, okay, then what do you want to call the negation of theism? Which again, that's what I do call atheism. There's two types, as you said. You're perfectly right. There's the lack of belief, or the negative atheism, or the assertion that God does not exist, which is the positive. But either one is a rejection, no matter how you look at it.
It's a rejection of a god or a gods. It's not necessarily a rejection of theism. It depends on, again, we could get into how you define theism. But it's not really important to me, as long as if you're having a conversation, you start with the same terms. That's the only important part.
I agree. So what is G-Man, according to his, if we're going to use his terminology, what does he want to call somebody who rejects theism? What does he have a name for? I'm just curious.
I don't know if he does. I mean, I don't know if anyone's actually, well, someone probably has brought that up to him, but he, the way he speaks around things, this is a problem with a lot of the CCP, and even with Ronnie and the whole DNA and water, people have asked him to carefully qualify what he means, and you don't get a straight answer. It's hard to get straight answers.
Really impossible.
So I'm not sure what G-Man thinks about that.
That's a good question, right? I mean, what does he want to call it?
Very good question. It's a very good question. And yeah.
And since you brought it up with the DNA and water, I guess Ronnie wants to make another video when I guarantee it, he's not going to address anything that I mentioned, anything that I brought up. He's just going to completely ignore, like it never even happened, and just say, "Oh, Steve's just talking about me and doesn't say, he's never right, and he doesn't, point out any of the facts that I'm wrong or anything." It's like, really? Oh, Jesus.
Well, the thing is, I've been in several live chats of his, mostly because this is kind of a little game that I could see other people doing the same thing, is asking him point blank to please describe what happens when DNA goes into water. And I've put it this way. I've said, what happens when you put DNA into unadulterated water? I don't say pure because that has a different meaning. DNA in unadulterated water at room temperature, 1 atmosphere pressure within a reasonable, time period. Please describe what happens chemically and other people put it other ways. There's some, I think it's CRISPR who puts it much better than I do.
He'll never give you a straight answer. Never.
That's the point.
Never.
And this is sort of the game. Let's put this in the live chat. The live chat, because he'll respond to other things, but he will not respond to that one thing. What happens? I want to know what happens chemically and physically.
Well, you saw my video. Did I not explain exactly what happens? What is he? What is he going to disagree with? And then I'm going to explain. The next thing I'm going to explain is that whole 4-oxygen from the cytochrome oxidase to the oxygen. Thaddeaus. I'm going to explain that in detail and explain a little bit about ETC and that, because he's like, oh, well, Steve never corrected me. Well, the fuck I didn't. Yeah. Rational mind, and I corrected him big time about his thinking that the electrons were being taken from the oxygen, which would mean it would be it'd be oxidized. And I kept explaining to him, you don't oxidize oxygen. He's like, well, I never called it oxidation. No, but if you take electrons from something, right, a loss of electrons is oxidation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he's not grasping.
Something is reducing him, because that makes sense. Guy grumble.
So yes, I am going to hopefully get that video out soon. It's really more complicated than I wanted to get into, but.
Well, Ronnie is very difficult to understand. That's the one thing that just totally boggles my mind. And it's why in the past I've often typed out what he says. And I know Drag has done the same thing. Because you have to type out what he says, and then you have to try to figure out what he means. Which is why Sam got confused. And I think none of us had a clue what he was actually saying there. In his recent hangout, the last 2 recent hangouts he's had, I'm sitting there listening to gobbledygook. I don't know. It's like the Gordian knot, How do you undo the Gordian knot?
He's trying to suss out his argument.
Maybe we should call it the Ronnie knot or something. Because you've got to try to find the end of it before you can unravel it. Except maybe it's Schrodinger's knot. I don't know. But it's just weird. You can't.
Schrodinger's knot.
Yeah, you. I know.
I
never understand what the hell he's talking about half the time. That's
the metaphor. That's the way to do it.
But I want to know what he supposedly has ever corrected me on. He's always saying that he's corrected me, but won't give an example of what. And then he also brought up Geo Torres just recently. Geo Torres never corrected me. Let's just set the record straight right here and now. Geo Torres did not correct me. In fact, just the opposite. I corrected him because he didn't know what a goddamn pseudogene meant. He doesn't understand what junk DNA. He doesn't understand what the terminology being utilized by most biologists that I'm aware of. And he's just going by young Earth creationist and intelligent design terminology. And he was wrong. And in fact, the paper he submitted to me, he said that the beta was a cluster of genes. It was like the beta globulin cluster or something. In a paper was not pseudogenes. And yet in the paper, 3 or 4 times, it calls it a pseudogene. Okay? So he's just throwing shit out there going, oh, there's no such thing as pseudogenes. Well, bullshit, you're an idiot. Of course there's pseudogenes. And the paper that he utilized to show us, oh, well, this shows that they're not pseudogenes. Well, the paper says in there that they're pseudogenes. So, well, there's one in there. I think there's 5 genes. One's a pseudogene, the other ones aren't. But yeah, I mean, so he never corrected me. I corrected him. There is such a thing as junk DNA. It just means it's non-coding for protein. And they don't like this. They don't get that that's what the term generally means.
Well, and
I know damn well what a pseudogene is.
They also don't bother to go back and look at what Ono meant when he first. Well, he didn't really coin the term junk DNA, because I found out that I found references going back as 1956 to that term. And there is a reference that mentions that the term was used somewhere in the 1940s, but I haven't been able to find the original. But he coined the current usage of the term junk DNA. Ono did, as in non-coding. And so because they don't know what junk DNA means, and they won't go back, and I've given references to Ono and said, go back and look. And for those of you who are listening and don't know, it actually is spelled O-H-N-O. Ono. And what is it? Suzuki Ono?
Suzuki Das?
No, I don't remember his first name. But anyway, so if you go back and you look at what he's actually talking about when he's talking about junk DNA, it's non-coding DNA, and the best explanation I've ever heard for this, because there's junk DNA and there's garbage DNA. They're different things. And the best explanation I've heard of this is that, junk DNA is like that stuff you've got in your garage, the junk you've got in your garage that you may use, but you don't have a use for it now at the moment. Garbage DNA is the stuff you put out for the curb. It's like the stuff you put out for the curb. There's a difference between the two terms. And they confuse or conflate the two terms.
Yeah, they want to use junk to mean garbage, because they say, oh, well, if you call it junk DNA, that your plant doesn't have any use. Well, no, not at all. In fact, hang on, I just had this discussion with Dr. Rana, because in his book when I was reading it, I said, hey, there's a part here you said, you're talking about junk DNA, but I want to know, are you using it colloquially, or are you using it like, a biologist would? And he admitted, he's like, well, I'm using it colloquially. Because I said, well, aren't you kind of confusing the reader, because you're talking about junk DNA, having a purpose, a function, which I think everybody agrees it can. Yeah. But it's still junk DNA, right?
Right. And when Ono was using it, he was kind of saying, okay, we have all this DNA that we know is what it does. We know, bad English. We have this DNA, okay, and we know what this DNA does. And then we have this other DNA. We don't know what that junk does. That's kind of the way he put it. We have the stuff we know about, and then we have this other junk. It's that kind of colloquial. Like I said, junk in the junk in your garage, the junk in your closet, this junk that we don't know about yet.
This is an absolute typical thing that happens more than I've ever seen at all. Every time science hypothesis, right, says, I'm going to label something I don't know something in order to try and quantify it, or at least show what variable range it has. Right? That's a standard thing to do in science. Mm-hmm. Do that, right? A theist will come along and go, oh, you're calling it something, therefore you know what it means.
Right.
We say, no, we're calling it something because we don't know what it means.
Right. Or it gets the name attached to it, like the Big Bang, which was a name given to it by its detractors. And there is no bang.
But that's why, that's why people actually have to study the science to understand.
Yeah,
right? That one's still different, because that name is only referring to what is called in science a singularity, right?
Right. Well, it's the rapid expansion. And that's
right. So if you were to go, sure, but if you were to go back and say this is a singularity with rapid expansion, whatever, inflationary, etc., obviously let's do that. So we shorten it to Big Bang, so people can at least say, here's something we don't know, and we've got a shorthand to say we don't know. And people do exactly the same with dark energy, dark matter. Mm-hmm. It's just all over physics, because that's the way you move forward in science.
But as I said,
same thing with junk DNA. We recognize that we don't know. Okay, so we're going to give it a shorthand label.
No, that's not what it means. We do know what junk DNA is.
Yeah.
It was originally posited, right?
Right.
For the layman. It came out that there was 75% or something of DNA which we didn't know what the function was, and it was going to be labeled as such.
That's not what I think the original meaning was, though.
Oh, and by the way,
we just knew it didn't have code for a protein. Right. But it could have regulatory.
Is that
right?
G-Man in our live stream right now? I see him messaging.
Who? What?
G-Man in the live chat, unless that's like a fake G-Man.
I'm playing a game, so I'm not even watching the live chat.
Oh, just for an
I'm making new stock accounts, like...
Well, one of the other things that you brought up physics, just for a minute, I wanted to bring up the idea of a singularity, because, again, people don't understand what that means, because G-Man has over and over again tried to asked people to describe what a singularity looks like. It's not understanding that, well, Matt Hunt, who isn't involved much evermore since he had a kid, well, his girlfriend or wife had a kid. Matt was a physicist and a Matt Hunt, physicist and a mathematician, and he pointed out that one way to describe the singularity is as a failure of the math.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The singularity is a mathematical singularity.
Right, and it's basically something we don't know.
Placeholder.
Yeah, and so you can't. And this has been explained to G-Man. He doesn't seem to understand it. That we can't tell you what a singularity is because that term.
This is the common thing, Jade. This is the common thing, Jade.
Right.
Across all of these things, junk DNA, all of these are just labels for something we haven't quite got a fucking handle on.
Right.
The common trope amongst the theists is to take these unknowns and claim that we have some knowledge or ask us to justify, which of course is nonsensical, right? So
the justification is we see the effect of things, right? When we say, okay, dark matter, what are we seeing? We're seeing the effect of gravity. Okay, and we're seeing that effect and we're calling it something. What can produce this gravity? Well, normal matter won't do it. We know that by relativity. So we're going to call this something matter that we can't see. And if you can't see it, it doesn't emit light. It's dark. Mm-hmm. So we're going to call it a dark matter. What it is, whether it's baryonic or non-baryonic, we don't know. But I mean, that's what it means, is the fact that it's something there. We don't know what, but obviously something is causing a gravitational force. Now, if G-Man or anybody else can tell me what can cause a gravitational force other than gravity, mass, other than mass causing gravity, I'd like to know what it is. Well, technically, if you want to get really technical, I guess
it's a don't know. They know. This is the dishonesty, because they know that these things are things we don't know and that they are labels for things we don't have a full understanding of. And then they say, give me the full understanding.
Well, but you're dealing with people that don't even have a myopic understanding. They don't even have a partial understanding.
Sure, to me, that's kind of irrelevant, right? Because, the question of, just to misunderstand that it's a device used, right, as a placeholder.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter what placeholder we're talking about.
Exactly, and I think you've hit it dead on there. I mean, that's beautifully put.
I would agree with them.
Yeah, we don't know what certain things are, and it's the same thing with abiogenesis. There are various hypotheses, and we have some ideas, but we can't tell you how something came about if we don't know. We could say, well, there are these hypotheses, and you want to examine the hypotheses. Let's do it. Let's look at all of them. But
again,
because you can't answer something,
doesn't example, Jade, and especially right, it'll go off on evolution is rubbish. You believe you come from a monkey. How many other straw mans he can put out there? And once that fails, he then goes, yeah, but you can't tell me how it started. And he goes to abiogenesis, thinking biogenesis is a word which we understand what this means, instead of it's a placeholder for something we don't understand yet.
Right.
It's the same trope every time. They'll find one of these things that we use as placeholders. We clearly declare they're placeholders, and yet we're supposed to try and give you the answer, otherwise God.
Well, it should be pointed out that otherwise God thing is that by positing a alternative explanation that has either no explanation or explains everything is really nothing about any kind of posit whatsoever. If somebody says, I'm going to posit that the explanation for this is X, and X literally explains everything, such as God, why'd you wake up this morning? God, why did this fall to the ground? God, why does my computer work? God, why does electricity work? God. That explains nothing, because you cannot make a model out of that, right? If I want to say, okay, I want to build a computer, how am I going to make these chips? Well, the theory of God. It doesn't work. That's what they don't understand. What science does is tries to explain using naturalistic things, naturalistic explanations.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess the best argument I've ever heard for it is, well, yeah, but it makes me feel better.
And that's fine. I don't have a problem with that.
One thing I wanted to bring up now that we're talking about this is I've been reading some things lately, including not just CCP kind of stuff, Answers in Genesis, whatever. And there is an argument put forth by some about what is science. and by our understanding, science is a natural explanation for a natural world. That's what science is. If you go back further beyond what we call science and go into natural philosophy, it's a little bit different. It's also larger because things like architecture and music are part of natural philosophy. But science is finding a naturalistic explanation for the natural world. We're limiting ourselves to the natural world. But there are some people out there who are arguing that science should be more than that. I don't buy any of those arguments. I've read a number of them. However, this is what some of the CCP evangelists, fundamentalists, whatever, are kind of depending on. Although they're getting their information, as far as I can tell, second or third hand. They're not getting it from the people who are sometimes philosophers of science and sometimes scientists themselves that are trying to explain why they think we need to expand the definition of science. And by the way, these people aren't necessarily saying God. You know what I mean? Some of them are just arguing that we should use some different methods to examine science or what is science. And some of the arguments are very interesting. I don't buy any of them, but they're still interesting and they make you think. But what happens is what these people are saying gets filtered through, answers in Genesis and so on and so forth. And then it answers in Genesis to certain blogs, and then eventually, trickles down to the CCP and people like them. So you find people trying to argue that science is not science, essentially. Science is not what we normally think of as science. And if you try to say, well, no, science is an investigation of the natural world using methods, they'll say, well, no, what they're basically saying is, no, it isn't. We can't limit science to that
they're
thing.
redefining it. And by the way, I want to point out, people are saying, oh, well, G-Man, let G-Man in. And by the way, you don't need to time him out. I mean, I don't really care. But no, G-Man is the only person banned, and it's very well known why he's banned, because he uses bullhorns, and the bullhorn hurts people's ears. I've had 3 people complain to me. I can't take the chance because he said he wouldn't do it, and he lied, and he did it. So, I mean, other than that, if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't give a shit. He can come in. Anybody can come in.
I'm pretty sure he's blocked me anyway, dude.
Yeah.
I don't know why you would waste your time with him in the first place.
Well, it lasted like 10 minutes just for balls. Because, I mean, he needs to be pointed out why his arguments are bad. Nobody's intimidated by him. I don't know why that person thought he's intimidating. Yeah. There's nothing to be intimidating. His arguments are some of the weakest bullshit arguments I've ever heard. And I think he knows it deep down, but I think he doesn't care. I mean, he just wants to be able to agitate the quote-unquote atheist, and he'll use whatever bullshit, dumb argument that he can, because he has no actual argument to utilize. As Jay pointed out, he doesn't know a real argument if his life depended on it. He has no clue what an actual argument would be. None.
No, and I'd like to say I would be happy to entertain a different definition of science, or work within that for the sake of argumentation, if they could come up with one. But they can't, because they haven't read the primary arguments about this. They haven't read, the primary literature, however you want to put it. So they just will say, well, science should be more than that, without being able to define what the more than that is.
Yeah.
Or without being able to come up with the argument for it. And it really does eventually end up with God did it, which isn't an argument. So I mean, if you want to tell me that science should be something other than the traditional sense of what science is, which really only goes back to the 19th century, then fine, bring it. And I'll entertain it. I'll even argue within your parameters. But you can't just say it's different and leave it at that. It doesn't work.
Yeah, because if I want to posit Gremlins did something, well, okay, why is it any different for me positing Gremlins as an explanation for something, which explains nothing, as it would God? What's the difference? If you want to bring in supernatural explanations, I can posit anything I damn well want to posit then. And if we start doing that, are we wasting a hell of a lot of time with science? We can't eliminate non-naturalistic explanations right off the bat. Right?
Well, and as I said, some of the people who are arguing this are not arguing for God. They're arguing for looking at science in a different way. In some cases, a more philosophical way. But I don't, as I said, I don't buy their arguments. But if someone wants to argue from one of those points of view, that's fine. But argue from it. Don't just say, nah, and leave it at that. I want an argument.
Right.
I got to stop you with that gremlins thing, though, because it is a known fact that there are gremlins in any PC running Windows.
Well,
That's
Windows
true.
98, Vista, XP.
ME.
Sure.
Well, don't forget the demons.
Yeah, those demons.
They're
Yeah.
demons. Demons be real.
No, but it is funny when I listen to these people, how bad their arguments really are. I mean, again, True and the rest of them are so spin shit to the point of being comical, and I don't think many people are really buying it anymore. There's nothing else I can do on my end to explain to people how much of a con artist these people are, how much they're lying, other than point it out in my videos and then ask them, show me where I'm wrong. That's it.
I'm having connection problems, so I don't want to just talk over. But it strikes me, Jade, what you were just saying a moment ago was when they say science could be more, kind of directly implying by that there should be some kind of non-inductive proof for science.
Yeah, I think that's part of it too. But I don't think they understand that. They just are picking up phrases and things from other people, and they don't know what they're talking about.
No.
Yeah, I kind of heard Matt going on about this the other day. Sorry, Steve, go ahead.
If any of these people actually did implement what they thought they wanted to implement without even having a plan to do so, because like Jade said, they don't even have really defined definitions of what this would actually mean to open up science to non-naturalistic things. But if we did do something like that, I don't think they've ever looked at the ramifications. You know, I really don't. I mean, what are we going to start doing? Faith healing? Because I mean, that's what they'd be into. Oh well, you know, we don't know. The explanation might have a. Let us pray for you in the hospital. Studies show that actually it makes things worse, but whatever.
Well, we could, for example, bring in the concept of the soul, which is a non-naturalistic thing, and you could argue that the soul is a link between the magisterium of the spiritual world and the magisterium of the natural world. And you could make that argument.
That's like Descartes would say, wasn't there somebody, one of them?
Well, the issue comes down to me that they have to deny reality in order to get this extra bit into science.
Mm-hmm.
In science, you can have contradictory things happening.
But again, I wouldn't mind that argument, but I would say that's not, I would just simply say that's not traditional science. That's, excuse the joke here. Wait, yeah. I was going to say, here comes the joke. That's science plus.
Well, it's philosophy, it's not science. Yeah, I mean, there's a big difference.
Well, it's, yeah, I'm telling you that because, I mean, when they want to be able to include intelligent design, because, of course, Ronnie's many times said intelligent design is the only true science. And once you start opening the door to bullshit science, where does it stop? Because intelligent design, I'm sorry to say, no matter what Ronnie will ever say or anybody else, it's completely bullshit science. There's no question about it. We recognize it as bullshit science. That doesn't mean there isn't an intelligence. That could have been. But you cannot use intelligent design because intelligent design is a bad argument.
In traditional science. But if you wanted to say there is, again, this interface, if you want to say, okay, I believe that there's an interface between the magisterium of science and the magisterium of the natural world and the spiritual world, and I think that within that interface is intelligent design. There is an intelligence that is operative at some level. But you can say that, and that's fine, and you can make arguments for that, and that's fine. But that doesn't make it science. That's the point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I agree with you. And in certain classes, they might talk about something like that, right?
Well, I think it would be interesting. I think it would be interesting to say, okay, let's just, for the sake of argument, assume that we have these two magisteria. We have the magisteria of the natural. We have the magisteria of the supernatural. And our argument, we're going to start with those, concepts as being real for the sake of argument. And then I'm going to say, okay, let us assume is an interface, some sort of interface between these two magisteria. What would this interface be like? And would this interface involve some sort of intelligence? And that's where you could put intelligent design. But it isn't going to make it science.
No.
It makes it something else. And again, I'm fine with that.
They would throw it more in the philosophical realm.
I mean, I'm a Catholic, right? So I believe in God, and I believe in the.
That would throw it into the philosophical realm. and that's fine. I have no issue with that.
Right, and neither do I. Philosophical. I would say theological more than philosophical, because I think that's sort of where the interface can be, is more theological, and that's fine. That's a really interesting argument, and there are lots of people, again, historically, who have argued in that interface, but. And it's a little bit too like arguing about the two great books that we've been handed by God. We have the book of nature and we have the book of the Bible, and they should not conflict, and there should be an interface between the two of them as well. So that, and again, that's a well-honed territory more. So those are arguments you can have, and they can be interesting, and they can be fun, and they can be enlightening. But you can't say that that's science. You can't drag science into that interface.
Oh. Yeah, and by the way, I would actually place theology under philosophy, by the way. Just FYI.
Well, I too, but I would say it's a type of philosophy.
Yeah.
And it's a type of
theology
philosophy.
is a subdivision.
I would say it's like the door to that interface. Again, this is just, these to me would be fun arguments, but I'm not going to get angry. I'm not going to, disagree with I'm not going to say, well, you're wrong. My beliefs are thus and such, and they are absolutely right. I could be wrong. I could be wrong about my theology.
Jake, you're starting to trigger me into G-Man now. So
okay,
just
sorry
be
about
careful.
that. Sorry about that. I don't want to do that. Definitely.
You said Catholic, right? Okay, so we know what G-Man thinks of that.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, well,
we're all idol worshippers.
Not Christians.
Yeah,
well, you're going to hell. Yes, you're going to hell. Obviously.
You're theist, but you're atheist, but you're not Christian.
Hey,
right?
I want you to
just to say on.
I want you to think about all the people who would be in G-Man's hell. That's the better place to be.
Pretty much everybody.
On G-Man's definition of atheism, it's more that, and I hashed this out a year ago or so in one of Nadia's with him, but it's more that he is denial of God. Right?
Mm-hmm. An atheist would deny the existence of God. But see, I would be atheistic toward his God, not atheist, but I would be atheistic. I don't believe his God exists. I don't believe Ronnie's God exists, because their God to me is non-coherent, nonsensical, and they're the most horrible representations of Christians I've ever ran across in my entire life.
Well, I don't know about them.
Well, they are. I mean, online.
Well, they're some of
the worst.
Westboro, they're the worst.
Yeah, well,
or
that's pretty bad. But I've never dealt with any of them personally, right?
Anderson, but
that's
see,
my own experience here.
Yeah.
But
see, from my point of view, I would say, use the language I'm used to, I would say their interpretation of God, their definition of God, because I believe there's just simply one God, period. There isn't your God, my God, their God. There's just one God. The language I would use.
Their version of God does not exist.
Yeah, and I'm just saying that's the language I would use. However, I'm not going to argue with someone who goes, their God, because I know what you mean.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
But I could be atheistic toward their God, because again, their God to me is not possible. Not possible.
Right, but this is also a place where we have a language interface. Where we have a language interface. When you say you don't believe in their God, and to me that I automatically translate that in my filter to their interpretation of God.
Yeah, I agree.
And so I'm not going to argue with you, and like some of these people would on, not necessarily on this point, but at similar points, and say, well, you're wrong, because there is no their God, there is no my God. There's
that's fine.
But I wouldn't do that, because I understand people use language differently, and I'm intelligent enough and to be able to.
Well, it's by context, right?
Yeah,
you understand context,
exactly.
They don't, and Trill pointed out brilliantly that they don't get context, because that's what he was saying.
I was trying to say that, man.
You did.
How frustrating that was. I felt like I was just like a broken record at that point.
Because he doesn't understand. None of them understand context.
I mean, I thought the only thing that I would say is that the dictionary definition did not say which usage of God it was referring to. So it's like you kind of do have to play a little bit of a guessing game there, and kind of just assume that the context is the number 2 definition of God when you look that up in the same dictionary.
But any context should be a working definition that people can agree upon, right? I mean, if I have a definition of atheism that I think the vast majority of people would agree upon, that's fine. Even the ones that I don't particularly use, like the lacktheism, I don't like that definition. but I understand people utilize it, and I'm accepting of that. And if I know what they mean by that, that's fine. Would I use that definition in my, daily communication or arguments? No. But does that stop them from using from theirs? No. That's the difference.
Thaddeus brought up a really interesting point. He said, which definition you use? In dictionaries, for the most part, the first definition is the preferred one. However, you can have a first and a second definition that are equal.
Yeah, because the number 2 ones seem to fit more
that's fine.
when it comes to God.
If they're both common definitions, it doesn't make any difference which one you use. But the point I wanted to make is, and I can't remember what this was about, empiricism arguing a definition. And somebody pointed out, yeah, you had to go to definition number 4 to get the one you wanted.
Yep, that was for. Oh, what was that for?
What was that for? You remember, right?
Yes.
See, this is another way of being deceptive. Rather than take, because the first definitions are usually the ones that are most commonly used. And again, you could have 1, 2, or even 3 that are very common. But when you start going, and usually it depends on the dictionary, there is sometimes a book in the dictionary when you get to like 3 and 4, like it's like a physical break or a colon or something like that. And that tells you that 2 are common, everything after the colon is not common. Or it might even say in parentheses UNK or something like that, meaning uncommon.
Uh-huh. But has been used in that way.
Right. So, but if you have to go down to definition 4 or 5 or 6 to get the definition you want, you're not doing dictionary right.
Do you have a dictionary, bro?
Yeah. What was that though? You know what I'm talking about.
I just don't remember what it.
Yeah, I actually heard it. I actually heard it as well, and I'm racking my brains, going, yeah, no, it was quite subtle. It was something like, fucking hell. No, it was just a word that marked a contrast.
Drag not remember.
Yeah.
I just don't off the top of
I
my
know.
head. He's gone to so many colloquial definitions all the time that just.
But also, when you back yourself out of an argument, you get a little desperate, right?
I think they've all gotten a lot desperate.
I mean, they have to save face. I actually a couple of things have been triggered in me, actually, which was the first time I saw true empiricism. He was doing hangouts with Jungle Jargon. And you can imagine, and honestly, Ronnie, if you can go back and get some of these clips, right? I don't even know where they were, but honestly, some of these hangouts, he was just spouting the most immoral shit. None of it was science. All of it was Bible and faith.
Who, Jungle or True?
True. Well, both of them. Of course, Jungle was just edging him on all the time and edging him on. And every time Ronnie was falling in the trap and going, yeah. I mean, worse than G-Man. You know, calling atheists all sorts of things.
One thing
get his hand.
One thing I wanted to mention, and you can bring this up to anyone who wants to entertain themselves a bit. Ronnie will say over and over again that when he talks about intelligent design, he's not bringing in a god or a god. He says that. And yet, if you go to his hangouts and you go to other hangouts he's appeared in, you will see where he brings it to God without fail. He conflates intelligent design with God all the time, even though he claims he doesn't. And I've actually been tempted to, well, of course, he hasn't brought that up for a while, but I've actually been tempted to try to go back and find some of these things. The problem is I'd have to listen to Ronnie.
Yeah, that's
the
hard.
flying flip is the point of running an intelligent design argument without God.
Yeah.
Very little. I mean, the whole point of the intelligent design thing was set up by people who wanted theism taught, right? They wanted, creationism taught in connection with evolution, right? Teach the controversy crap.
I think it goes back a lot earlier than that. It goes
It
goes right back to post Darwin as one of the answers to Darwin.
And one thing I wanted to also mention, people bring up the Kitzmiller versus Dover in the trial, and they say that intelligent design was shot down there. It wasn't. Only a particular kind of intelligent design was shot down, which is the more common kind. So I realize when people are saying, well, intelligent design was shot down, I know that most people realize what's going on. Because in the Kitzmiller versus Dover trial, the intelligent design was really just disguised creationism.
And it was not even thinly veiled. It was blatant.
It was blatant. However, the decision by the judge would cover any intelligent design that is veiled creationism.
Yeah.
So it effectively has silenced intelligent design in the schools.
Well, for now.
Yeah, for now. But technically, intelligent design was not shot down in the Kitzmiller versus Dover trial. Just the versions of intelligent design that are veiled, thinly or otherwise, creationism. But again, that's most of it. Although there are people, there's even a Facebook group, there are people who are trying to divorce intelligent design from a necessary God. They're having a lot of trouble because you can't do it. Like Jim said, it doesn't work.
So intrinsically woven with each other at this point. It's probably nearly, if not impossible, to extricate intelligent design from creationism, because they just have such a relationship to each other, both historically and contextually. Because again, none of these people want this intelligence to be some alien, because and that's the problem with that is you just push it back even further, right? Right. What was the intelligence that created the alien? So, and if you really want to put it that way, what was the intelligence that created God, or whatever the intelligence was? Whatever you posit for the
intelligence that created the aliens.
So what created the intelligence? If you want to do this game where they're playing intelligent design, what created the intelligence?
Yeah, but also if we go back historically, this was probably one of the best of Anselm's arguments. Was look at the natural world, right? It's the book of nature tells you that God exists. I mean, that's one of the fundamentally best arguments they've ever had in 2,000 years.
Yeah.
Right? Now it turns out it's wrong, but nonetheless,
it's natural theology.
You can't divorce the two.
Yeah.
No, you can't. You really can't. No matter how hard they try. And believe me, there are some fairly intelligent people who have tried to divorce the two, and I've watched their arguments and attempts, and they're having a lot of trouble, especially since they're trying to not do what most intelligent design proponents do. And what most intelligent design proponents do is they pick little bits and pieces of scientific theory and then try to debunk those, as if to debunk all those little bits and pieces it would not prove intelligent design, nor would it prove God. It doesn't work that way. I mean, you can go on and on about the bacterial flagellum, which we know doesn't work, or what was it that Behe screwed up? The evolution of the immune system, wasn't it? Again, he just didn't bother to read the material on it, and things of that sort. Or the recent, when Matt Slick brought up the woodpecker's tongue, which is actually the hyoid bone, and things like that. And if I spent a few hours looking, cause I remember the woodpecker's tongue, but I'd kind of forgotten it. So I spent a few hours this week. Pecker's tongue and the hyoid bone, in invertebrates and in tetrapods, and so his whole argument completely false.
I laughed so hard because that was one of the particular things that Dawkins picked on.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you can check out a half-hour Dawkins lecture.
Yeah. Well,
to try and understand what it's about, right? Which is the most basic.
Right. And his argument is, well, how one of his argument was trying to be, well, how could you have the hyoid bone go halfway, the tongue, and it really isn't the tongue, although the tongue does follow the hyoid, because one of the functions of the hyoid is to anchor the tongue. But the hyoid bone goes up and around, and it's a shock absorber, is what it is for woodpeckers who are banging their head against the wall. But his argument was, well, how could you get it halfway up there? Well, apparently he's never looked at a chicken skull or a turkey skull, because it arcs around the back. It doesn't go as up and over as the the woodpecker tongue, but it does arc along the base of the skull. It arcs around there. So that's a ridiculous argument, because they haven't bothered to look at the literature. They haven't bothered to read hyoid and tongue. I found the really interesting paper where they studied the mechanics of how the woodpecker pecks, and it's all full of charts and graphs and pictures, and how the hyoid helps absorb that pressure to protect the brain. really interesting stuff, but they don't bother to look at any of them.
All their arguments are arguments literally from ignorance, and I mean that not just as literally an argument for ignorance. I mean, they don't know. They don't know the actual science, so they just throw this shit out there. Well, how can this be? How can that be? Well, there are explanations for this shit, but like you said, they don't go bother to check any of this shit.
Well, and Neffy once was arguing with someone about, well, you show me where the mouth parts of the locust came from. Well, it took me about 15 seconds. But the thing is, I realized the minute he said that, this is another problem that they do. They'll pick on something specific, the generality. So I thought, well, mouth parts of the locust, there probably isn't anything about that. I think the best thing to do is to go back and look for the mouth parts of arthropods. And sure enough, I typed in evolution of the mouth parts of arthropods, and I found a really cool paper complete with illustrations showing not only how mouth parts of arthropods evolved, but how they specialized into different kinds like the insecta. So they don't know what to look for either, which is another point of view. And I think you know all about the whole hair cell thing. I think it was Brandon who brought that up, Brandon Petrocchio. Look at how complex the ear is. I mean, that couldn't have just happened. And I have an entire book on the evolution of the auditory system in vertebrates. And all that stuff is just added on because hearing is all based on the hair cell. And the hair cell exists in all vertebrates, including fish. Just in fish, it's in the lateral line. And they hear through the lateral line in the jaw. In us, we also hear through the jaw, and we have all this other stuff that's built up. But the basic element of hearing is a hair cell.
Anyways, guys, I'm going to bring this to a close.
I heard it then.
A million times.
Yeah. Thanks for running a after show. I wasn't sure if you would.
Thank you.
Like, come on, man, it's G-Man. You got to run an after
that's
show.
fine. And I got out what I wanted to say as far as how I thought you did, how I thought G-Man was just absolutely ridiculous again. And he'll be on his little channel tomorrow going, oh, look, I own them. You can't even say he owned an atheist. He owned a theist, I guess, but a mesotheist.
Man, more power to you, Thaddeus.
Yeah, and you know what? Like I said, I think it really matters more that people think that you did exceptionally well, and that's something that should be your takeaway. Nobody in the right mind would ever think that G-Man did well. Nobody. It'll be Ronnie, a few other people, but.
I mean, I guess if people want to know where the debate is, because they might just be looking at this on your channel. If you go to Hannah Zuby's channel, that's where the debate happened. Because some people are just kind of looking at it just because, it's your channel without actually seeing the debate first.
Oh, yeah.
So, it's an informal debate, just a little discussion. Not like we had these huge structure. But I had some notes written.
Well, like I said, I think we need to be done with this. I mean, they're interesting to listen to, but I mean, seriously, it's like talking to a child at this point. I'm just really not that interested in what G-Man has to say. His arguments are shit.
I think the conversation was a pretty important one to have in some ways.
Well, I think you periodically have to engage with these people.
So.
We have new people come into the community.
Because G-Man, like I said this before, he has some actual followers now.
So, and I don't know if you guys saw the side chat earlier, but I told Hannah that I would, let's say, entertain the idea of having a informal discussion, not a formal debate, with true empiricism on biological evolution on her channel, as long as it did not involve abiogenesis or the precursors to abiogenesis. In other words, ATP is off the table.
Do you think he would really abide by that?
No.
Seriously?
But I think it would be interesting to see if he did, because what would happen is if he brought that up, I would just say, sorry, that's not evolution.
Yeah, and then he'll be like, oh, well, watch Jade, avoid the actual debate. Look at her. She doesn't want to talk about the actual substance.
I would say, you're the one who's not, you're the one who, actually, I would say it in the first place, say, that the beginning of this debate to talk about biological evolution, not about any precursors.
Yeah, but we've already known from past experience, he has never, ever stuck to his the terms and conditions. Ever.
No, and he also, you notice he also avoids evolution. he always goes to ATP and things like that, and he's trying to go into the biochemistry, which is even before abiogenesis. That's like pre-abiogenesis.
Well, like I said, I'm having my next video. I'm still working on. It's going to take me a while to make. I'm actually explaining what ATP is, what its function is, how it's made, what is electron transport, and I'm starting off pretty basic for the most part, right? I mean, I want people to see that yes, it deals with chemistry and biology, but it's not like it's something that we can't all understand. So
I tell you what, just mentioning that, Steve, I'd be really interested, and I don't know whether you could do this or not, but I would be really interested if you could do one on neutron transfer.
A neutron transfer?
Neutron transfer.
I don't know what the hell it is. What do you mean? What do you mean neutron transfer?
I have to go away and look because I came across it briefly a while back and didn't know what it was. And,
Sounds like a short video.
Before you go, and I'm going to leave in just a minute because I've got to go do something, and I know you're closing, but I just wanted to mention this before I leave. G-Man has made a video called "What is it, Atheist? Get ready to laugh your butt off," and it's almost 4 minutes long, so that should be entertaining.
Wait, did he just?
Anyway, I'm going to go, folks. I want to say this was a lot of fun.
Okay,
that's what we're gonna hang out.
Yeah, and Thaddeus, I thought you made a really gallant attempt.
Thank you.
At trying to have a conversation with G-Man, and that's pretty good.
Thank
and
you.
Everyone else, it's good to talk to you, and I'll see y'all later.
Yeah, I'll sign off here in a second too. I'm just doing a quick arena here thing, but yeah, I'm not sure what you mean by neutron transfer. You know what the electron transfer is? We're talking about.
I don't.
Okay, the electron transfer is part of cellular respiration, and Ronnie loves to bring it up, saying how he just understands it so well, and he doesn't because he's made he made major mistakes that he was corrected on, and then had the audacity to say that we never corrected him, which is bullshit because there's a record of it, of him actually fucking it up and then we correcting him, which would have been minor at the time, I think, and he exacerbating it tenfold by going and started saying completely more bullshit stuff. So,
I see. Let me just try and do a Google search.
Do you have any plans for future guests, Steve?
Yeah, Jennifer Peoples is going to be joining us not too long from now, like next month.
That should be interesting.
Anything experience? Yeah.
I like the hangouts when you have guests. I mean, they might not always be in an area that I'm interested in or people that I even really care to know more about, but the way you handle them, I find myself caring and done structure, and you get some cool people in there.
Yeah, there's a couple things we're working on. It's a slow process. God damn, I'm just doing this arena to this fucking overpowered druid.
Well, I imagine you got to book them in advance and whatnot.
Oh yeah, it's a process. But anyways, guys, I am going to bring this to a close.
Yay.
Thaddeus, thank you very much for
You're welcome.
coming on to the after show.
If people want to find my music, just search up Young Trillium. That's what I am on social media.
And there you go. And we look forward to the debate tomorrow. And I want everybody to, again, when you see Ronnie, ask him for evidence to support his accusations that I have multiple stock accounts. Ask him for evidence that he's corrected me on what? Because he's never corrected me on a goddamn thing, and neither has GeoTaurus. So that's the reality, because if they have any evidence that they corrected me on something, I'd like to see it, because I sure the fuck hasn't presented anything so far. And with that, I will call this to a close, and I will see you guys tomorrow.